So to finish up with what I was saying is that once we begin to think of these ideas as pure metaphors, as having a regulative function to them that does not necessarily refer to an ontological reality behind that metaphor. If we say that there's no necessity now, or indeed we're violating the rules of the game if we say that the ontological thing that once had been asserted as being real, as in the medieval times, disappears now. And now we're just left with these metaphors, even though Kant himself really believes in the actual reality of what the metaphors refer to. It's just a step away from that to doing away with the ideas altogether and moving into atheism. Schopenhauer, for example, in the next generation after Kant, or the next one after that, I suppose Hegel is the next generation, then Schopenhauer, did not believe in God, for instance. Schopenhauer has already done away with God. He does retain some metaphysical ideas. For him, the will is a metaphysical idea that's equivalent to the Hindu idea of Brahman. And it's worth pointing out there, too, that the Hindus make a distinction that is somewhat analogous to the distinction that Kant makes here between the idea of God as a mere representation versus the idea of God as a reality, when they say that there are two aspects to Brahman. There is Nirguna Brahman and there is Sakguna Brahman. Guna means quality. It's the same thing as representation, basically, a predicate. And Sa means with. So if we speak of the gods, let's say we imagine Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva. Picture them in your mind. They're pretty popular deities. Pretty much everyone nowadays knows what they look like. Picture them in your minds as representations. These are Sakguna Brahman. This is Brahman, the primordial energy qualified with qualities now. Now, if we attain a further deeper state of yoga and go into Samadhi, which is the top chakra in the Kundalini, beyond the eye of vision that's in the middle between the two eyes, and we go to the top chakra, which is beyond name and form, Nama Rupa, beyond name and form. And at the top chakra, what we have is Nirguna Brahman. We have Brahman with no qualities, Brahman as it is in and of itself, as a kind of humming, crackling, primordial energy field that's best represented as the sound Om. That is somewhat similar to what Kant's saying here as the difference between thing in itself and the God idea as a mere representation, as a kind of a metaphor. Very similar ideas here. And in Schopenhauer, he's already done away with the God idea. The soul idea as intelligible character is still there. And the energy Brahman idea is still there as will. But by the time you get to Nietzsche, Nietzsche has done away with both ideas. Nietzsche neither believed in God nor the soul. And then by the time you get down to Joseph Campbell in the world of myth studies, there's no ontological reality to these things whatsoever except as metaphors, just as literary figures of speech. They've become completely derealized. They refer to nothing other than themselves as pure metaphors. And so what Kant is doing here is summing up an age, ending an epoch. He's founding a kind of rational metaphysics that represents clearly, as I think Spengler would foresee, the beginnings of the end of Western metaphysics, because he's beginning to sterilize the ideas out of existence. You can see them beginning to crumble. Behind the image, the reality is beginning to become uncertain now. Kant believed in it, but he says that science can neither prove nor disprove it. Not so in previous epochs when philosophers like Descartes assumed the existence of God as a given. Same thing with Leibniz. So those days are gone by the time we get to Kant, and metaphysics is on its way out. It's an oscillation, as Heidegger would put it. The nothing is beginning to introduce an oscillation into being here, and it's beginning to destabilize Western metaphysics. And a couple generations after Kant, that's going to be it for it. So you can see Kant here as a kind of early version of what Nietzsche calls the Socratic man, who comes along with reason and begins to sterilize the ideas out of existence, although it's not exactly fair to compare Kant to Socrates, since Kant was a religious man and Socrates was purely an intellect. But it's clear that the metaphysics is on its way out here.